All right, so ever feel like you're trying to solve a human behavior puzzle?
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into Chase Hughes' The 6-Minute X-Ray.
Oh, cool.
And trust me, it's packed with tools to unlock some serious insights about the people around you.
Hughes has this knack for making these complex behavioral patterns feel almost like a cheat sheet. You read it and you think, wait, I can actually use this.
Absolutely. And we're going to break down some of his most powerful frameworks, starting with the needs map. It's this idea that we all have these core social needs driving our actions, like an invisible compass.
And what's fascinating is how quickly you can spot these needs in conversation.
Yeah.
Hughes argues you can pinpoint them within minutes just by observing someone's language and behavior.
Okay, let's unpack this needs map.
Mm.
It focuses on 6 primary social needs. But let's start with what Hughes calls the big 3: significance, approval, and acceptance.
Think of them as the fundamental questions people are constantly, often subconsciously asking themselves in social situations. So for someone driven by significance, it's all about, do I matter? Do I have an impact? Am I seen as important?
So that friend who's always dropping names.
Or
Or subtly bragging about their latest achievement, classic significance need.
exactly. And it goes beyond just words. They might wear bold clothing, drive a flashy car, anything to stand out and feel significant.
It's like they're saying, look at me, I'm a big deal,
Hmm.
even if they're not saying it out loud.
Right.
Now, what about someone with a strong need for approval? What are their telltale signs?
They're constantly seeking validation from others, asking themselves, do people like me? Am I doing things right? You'll see them fishing for compliments, changing their opinions to match the group, always wanting to be on the right side of things.
I'm picturing that person who dresses formally, even at a casual gathering,
Mm.
or who's overly polite, always trying to avoid any kind of disapproval.
Spot on.
Okay.
And then you have the acceptance-driven individual. Their world revolves around belonging, being part of the tribe. They need to know, do I fit in? Am I accepted here?
These are the folks who go above and beyond to please others, quickly conform to group norms, and maybe even adapt their appearance to blend in. It's like they're sending a constant signal, I'm one of you, I belong here.
Right.
Okay.
And here's where Hughes's work gets really practical. He gives these fantastic examples of phrases that reveal these needs, often within the first few minutes of meeting someone.
Okay, give me an example. I'm all about actionable insight.
Okay, picture this. You're chatting with someone, and they casually mention, oh, it was no big deal. It was only an $80,000 investment.
They're downplaying it,
Yeah.
but it's screaming significance, right? It's like a subtle way of saying, look at me, I can casually drop that kind of cash.
Exactly.
It's okay.
Or someone with a strong pity need might say, I've been swamped with work and haven't slept in days. They might not be directly asking for help, but they're definitely seeking sympathy and acknowledgement.
Okay, so why does all this matter? We've identified someone's driving need, now what?
That's where the real magic happens. Once you understand someone's primary need, you can tailor your communication to resonate with them on a deeper level, almost like speaking their language.
So if I'm dealing with someone with a high significance need, appealing to their sense of importance would be far more effective than, say, focusing on logic or practicality.
Absolutely. If you want to persuade them, you'd highlight how your idea will make them stand out, elevate their status, make them the envy of their peers. You're speaking directly to their core need.
And this applies to everything.
Right?
Negotiations, sales, even personal relationships.
Imagine trying to convince a significance-driven partner to try a new restaurant. Telling them it's affordable or has a great family atmosphere probably won't get you very far.
But telling them it's the hot new spot that all the influencers are raving about, yeah, that might pique their interest.
Precisely. It's all about framing your message in a way that aligns with their needs.
Okay, we've covered the needs map and how to spot these needs in conversation. But where does the science come in? What's actually happening in the brain when these needs are activated?
That's where neuropeptides enter the picture. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Ooh, I love when science gets involved. Lay it on me.
Neuropeptides are these fascinating little chemical messengers in our brains. And they play a huge role in our emotions, actions, and yes, even our social needs.
So they're like the fuel behind the needs map.
Exactly. Hughes has this brilliant analogy where he describes neuropeptides as drugs for our social interactions.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Think of it this way. When a need is met, let's say you receive recognition that boosts your sense of significance. Your brain releases certain neuropeptides.
Okay.
These neuropeptides create pleasurable sensations, sort of like a natural high.
So it's like getting a hit of dopamine. when you achieve something that
Yeah.
makes you feel important, or when someone gives you a compliment that strokes your approval need.
You got it. And just like with any drug, our bodies crave more of those good feelings, so we start seeking out situations and interactions that trigger those specific neuropeptide releases.
So if someone has a strong need for acceptance, they might unconsciously gravitate toward group activities or social situations that make them feel like they belong, because their brain has become addicted to those acceptance-inducing neuropeptides.
That's the idea. It explains why we often fall into predictable patterns of behavior, seeking out the same types of interactions that feed our particular needs. And it also opens up a whole new level of understanding about how to influence those patterns.
So if you know someone's drug, their dominant need, you can become a bit of a brain pharmacist, tailoring your interactions to trigger those desired neuropeptide releases.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about manipulation, it's about understanding the underlying mechanisms that drive behavior and using that knowledge to communicate more effectively. Hughes even says everyone is a drug addict. We all just have different drugs. It's a powerful concept, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you rethink how we approach social interactions. So before we move on to the decision map, let's pause and let this sink in for our listeners. Think about someone you interact with regularly, a coworker, a friend, a family member.
Can you identify their drug, their primary need? What types of interactions do they seem to crave? And how can you use this knowledge to connect with them more effectively? It's a fascinating exercise that can transform your understanding of the people around you.
All right. Ready to dive into how people make choices? Let's explore the decision map.
So the decision map is all about understanding the mental filters people use when making choices. Think of it as a roadmap to their decision-making process.
So it's like once you understand someone's needs map, what they crave, the decision map shows you how they go about getting it.
You got it. And just like with the needs map, Hughes has identified 6 distinct styles that govern how we make choices: deviance, novelty, social, conformity, investment, and necessity.
Okay, I'm ready to map out some decisions. Where do we start?
Well, it's important to note that these aren't rigid categories. People often exhibit traits of multiple styles.
So someone could be a blend of, say, novelty and social, always chasing the latest trends, but also wanting their friends' approval.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing the dominant patterns. So let's break down each of these decision styles, starting with deviance. What makes someone a deviant decision maker?
My mind immediately jumps to fashion choices. Someone with a totally unique, maybe even shocking, personal style.
That's a great example. For them, it's all about standing out, breaking norms, and challenging conventions. They're constantly asking, will this choice help me be different, unique, unconventional?
Think of the person with bright-colored hair, tattoos that tell a story, or a wardrobe that screams, I make my own rules.
Right. They might also be drawn to niche hobbies, alternative lifestyles, or anything that bucks the trend. It's about carving their own path, regardless of what others think.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, how is that different from a novelty-driven decision maker? They also seem to like things that are different.
The key difference is the motivation. For novelty, it's not so much about being different for the sake of it, but rather about being on the cutting edge, the first to try something new. They're driven by the question, is this new, different, innovative? Will it position me as an early adopter?
So they're the ones lining up for the latest iPhone, trying the newest restaurant in town, before anyone else has even heard of it, right?
Exactly. They thrive on that feeling of being ahead of the curve, experiencing things before they become mainstream. For them, the newer the better.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about social decision makers. Are we thinking social media influencers here?
That's certainly one example, but it goes deeper than that. Social decision makers prioritize approval, connection, and fitting in with the group. They're constantly asking, will this make me more likable? Will it help me connect with others? Will people be impressed?
So they're likely to choose clothes, hobbies, even careers, based on what's popular, within their social circle or aspirational groups.
Right. It's all about being seen as in the know, trendy, and socially savvy. They might be highly active on social media, attend tons of events, and be very attuned to what's considered cool or in at the moment.
Now, conformity seems a bit more straightforward, right? Following the rules, blending in, not making waves.
Precisely. For conformity-driven individuals, the primary question is this what everyone else is doing? Is it acceptable within my group? Will it keep me under the radar?
These are the folks who dress similarly to their peers, choose well-established brands, and avoid anything that might cause a stir or challenge the status quo.
They value stability, predictability, and maintaining a sense of order. They'd rather fit in than stand out, even if it means sacrificing a bit of individuality.
I can see how that decision style might be valuable in certain professions like, say, law enforcement or the military, where following protocol is essential.
Absolutely. Each decision style has its strengths and weaknesses depending on the context. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the more practical decision styles, investment and necessity.
So less about social dynamics and more about, well, practical matters.
Exactly. Investment-driven individuals are all about long-term value, return on investment, and making smart choices. That will pay off in the future. They ask themselves, is this a wise investment? Will it provide lasting value? Will it help me achieve my goals?
So they probably spend more on high-quality items that will last, prioritize experiences that enrich their lives, and make very calculated decisions.
You got it. They're not swayed by trends or impulse buys. They do their research, weigh their options, and think about the long-term implications.
And how does necessity sit into all of this? It seems pretty self-explanatory. Choosing what you need to survive, right?
Yes, but it's more nuanced than just basic survival. Necessity-driven individuals prioritize practicality, functionality, and meeting their needs in the most efficient way possible. Their guiding question is this essential? Does it serve a practical purpose? Is it the most affordable option?
So they're probably budget conscious. Prioritize function over form, and avoid unnecessary spending. They buy a car because they need transportation, not to make a statement.
Exactly. They're not influenced by trends or social pressure. They make choices based on what they need to get the job done, pure and simple.
Okay, this decision map is fascinating, but how do we actually use it? Give me a real-world example.
Let's say you're trying to sell a high-end coffee maker.
Okay, I'm listening. I love coffee.
If you're talking to a social decision maker, you might highlight how popular the coffee maker is, how it will impress their friends, or how it will make them the host with the most.
But if I'm talking to someone with an investment mindset, I'd focus on the quality of the machine, the durability, maybe even the resale value, right?
Exactly. And if you're dealing with someone driven by necessity, you'd emphasize the practicality, how it saves them time and money, compared to buying coffee every day. It's all about tailoring your message to resonate with their specific decision-making style.
This reminds me of something we touched on earlier, how understanding someone's needs map can help you tailor your communication. But the decision map adds another layer, right? It shows you how to frame your message to align with their decision-making process.
Precisely. It's like having a secret decoder ring for human behavior. It can be incredibly valuable in all sorts of situations: sales, negotiations, even understanding your partner's choices.
Speaking of understanding our partners, I'm starting to think. My partner is a classic investment decision maker. He agonizes over every purchase.
And you? What's your dominant style?
Probably a blend of social and novelty. I like shiny new things, but I definitely want my friends to think they're cool too.
See, we all have our own unique patterns, but knowing those patterns can help us navigate our interactions more effectively, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Okay, we've covered needs, we've mapped out decisions, but what about the bigger picture? Is there a way to understand the why behind those needs and decisions, the underlying values driving someone's actions?
You read my mind. That's where the values map comes in. And it adds a whole new dimension to understanding human behavior.
All right, so we've explored the needs map, which reveals what people crave,
Yeah.
and the decision map, which shows us how they go about getting it. But now I'm curious about the deeper why behind those needs and decisions.
That's where the values map comes in. It delves into the underlying motivations and life goals that shape our choices, painting a more holistic picture of someone's behavioral compass.
So we're going even deeper down the rabbit hole, huh? What are some of the core values that Hughes identifies in this framework?
He outlines 6 core values: connection, information, recognition, experience, freedom, and growth. And what's fascinating is that these values often stem from what we lacked in our formative years.
So if someone grew up feeling isolated or disconnected, they might develop a strong connection value, prioritizing relationships and belonging above all else.
Exactly. Or if someone grew up in an environment where knowledge was scarce or withheld, they might develop a deep-seated information value, always seeking knowledge and striving to be in the know.
It's like we're trying to compensate for those past experiences by pursuing these values. In our present lives, I can definitely see that pattern in myself.
It's a common thread, and understanding someone's core values can be incredibly insightful because It helps us understand the driving force behind their choices. It adds a layer of empathy to the equation, allowing us to see the world through their lens.
So how do we actually identify someone's values in conversation? What should we be listening for?
Values often reveal themselves when we talk about aspirations, long-term goals, or ideal scenarios. It's those moments when someone's true passions and motivations shine through.
So someone with a strong connection value might say something like, at the end of the day, what truly matters is family and friends.
Precisely. While someone with an information value might say, if I just had access to the right information, I know I could make a real difference.
And someone driven by recognition might say, my biggest dream is to leave a legacy that inspires others.
Exactly. It's about listening for those clues that reveal what truly motivates them, what they strive for in life.
Okay, I'm starting to see how powerful this values map can be.
Mhm.
But how do we actually use this knowledge in our interactions?
Let's say you're trying to motivate a team member who has a strong growth value, highlighting opportunities for learning, skill development, and personal growth would be far more effective than, say, focusing on monetary rewards or status.
Because you're speaking directly to what drives them, what they truly value. It's about aligning your message with their internal compass.
Exactly. And this applies to all aspects of life.
Yep.
Personal relationships, professional collaborations, even understanding disagreements. If you know someone values freedom above all else, you can approach conflicts with more sensitivity, understanding their need for autonomy and independence.
So by combining the needs map,
Yeah,
the decision map, and now the values map, we're essentially creating a 3D map of someone's behavioral landscape. It's like having X-ray vision
yeah,
into their motivations and decision-making processes.
you got it. And Hughes doesn't stop there. He also explores how sensory preferences and pronoun usage can provide even more subtle insights into someone's personality and worldview.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
He argues that people tend to have a dominant sensory preference, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. This influences how they process information and communicate.
So a visual person might use phrases like, I see what you mean, or that looks good to me.
Exactly. An auditory person might say, that sounds great, or I hear you.
And a kinesthetic person might say, I can feel that, or this idea resonates with me.
Precisely. By recognizing these preferences, you can tailor your language to match theirs, creating a more harmonious and effective communication style. It's like speaking their sensory language.
It's about making them feel understood, meeting them where they are.
Exactly. And then there's pronoun preference. Hughes points out that the pronouns someone uses, self, team, or others, can reveal a lot about their focus and worldview.
So someone who frequently uses I, me, and mine might have a more individualistic perspective, prioritizing their own needs and goals.
Right. Someone who often uses we, us, and our might be more collaborative, valuing teamwork and shared success.
And someone who frequently uses they, them, and those people might be more externally focused, concerned with the impact of their actions on a wider circle, or perhaps more detached from situations.
It's a subtle but fascinating indicator of how someone sees themselves in relation to the world.
This is incredible. It's amazing how much we can learn about someone just by paying attention to these small details.
It's like unlocking a secret code to human behavior. It's about sharpening our observation skills and using those insights to connect with others on a deeper level.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
Understanding these behavioral profiling techniques can transform your interactions in every aspect of life, from personal relationships to professional negotiations.
It's about becoming a better communicator, a more insightful observer, and ultimately building stronger, more authentic connections with the people around us.
It's not about manipulation. It's about understanding. It's about seeing the world through multiple lenses, recognizing that we all have our own unique needs, values, and decision-making styles.
This has been a truly fascinating exploration. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's always exciting to see people embracing these concepts and using them to navigate the complexities of human behavior.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Observe the people in your life. Listen closely to their language, their choices, their aspirations. You might be surprised at what you discover.